Hi folks, this is Karim Rao from IT Visualizer channel. Today we'll continue our lab, the Tron Legacy lab. This is the fifth video. I have been discussing in the previous video the following. We have installed and configured DHCP server role, okay, and we configure the DHCP scope, okay, IP scope, and then we activate the allow and deny filters options. This is an option in DHCP that you can allow a workstation to take an IP address from the DHCP server, allow this process or deny this process according to the network card MAC address of the workstation. So if, for example, you have a workstation, its network card MAC address, for example, it is X, you can allow the DHCP to give this workstation with the network card MAC address MAC address X to take an IP address, or you can deny this same workstation from taking IP address from the DHCP according to its network card MAC address. So this is the allow and deny filters. And then we install the file server resource manager and we configure file quota. Okay, so we have both department shares and user home directory folders. So we have configured a file quota for both shares, so the users can put data until a certain limit for example, you can limit the department shares and home directory folders to have, for example, an amount of data to be put until, for example, 10 gigabytes. So the user can't put any data on the department shares or user home directory folders which are more than 10 gigabytes. This is called file quota. And then we have something called file screening. File screening, we are making a rule, or we are preventing users to put audio and video files on the department shares and user home directory folders. So this is called file screening. We are blocking the user to put, for example, video or media files on our file server, because the file server, it's only for saving or for putting important data for the user, for example, documents, PDFs, and so on. So this we have discussed in the previous video. This video we will create a new virtual machine, and this virtual machine we will install Windows 10 LTSC 2019 Enterprise on it, and we will join this workstation or join this virtual machine that have this operating system installed on it. We will join it to the domain, and we will see how the different group policies are applied to this workstation after joining the domain, and how the login script will be applied to this workstation, and later we will migrate this workstation from one domain to another, and we will migrate the Windows user profiles of this workstation from one domain to another. Okay, just a moment. So let's continue, guys. Here we will create a new virtual machine, and we will install, as I said before, Windows 10 on it, and then we will join this workstation to the domain to see how different group policies are applied and how the login script is applied, and then we will use it later to migrate it from one domain to another, and migrate all of the Windows user profiles on this machine from one domain to the another. Okay, and migrate user files, of course. Okay, user Windows file, of course. So let's begin. Here we go. First of all, we will choose a name for this workstation from the different computers we have created before. Okay, you remember in the beginning of the lab we have a Powershell script to create Active Directory objects, including the computer objects. So we will go to the text file that contains, or the CSV file that contains the computer Active Directory objects for the ENCOMMF.LOCAL domain, and we will take a name for one of these workstations. Okay, for example, here we will use this name. So we will create a workstation and name it with this name. This workstation is already created in the Active Directory as a computer object. We will create a new virtual machine, and then next, and then we will give it a name, and then next, and then we will make it generation 1, and then we will give it 2 GB of RAM. Okay, next, and then we put it on the DC internal switch. This is the name of our Hyper-V internal switch. Okay, and then we will give it 200 gigabyte of hard disk. Next, and then we will insert the ISO image that contains the Windows 10 LTSC 2019 operating system. So we will go to the setting of this virtual machine, and then we will insert the ISO image that will contain the operating system that we need to install. So we will connect first setting, then we will, in the integration services, we need to check the guest services. This is very important for the integrity between the host and the guest. And then we will go to the image or the ISO image and insert our operating system image or ISO image. It will be Windows 10 Enterprise LTSC 2019. This is a very practical system for production environments, because it doesn't contain the Windows Store, or doesn't contain the Cortana, doesn't contain the Edge. So a lot of things are stripped from this Windows 10 operating system. Okay, it's not the normal Windows 10 Enterprise system. It's Windows 10 Enterprise LTSC 2019 system. It's different than Windows 10 Enterprise. The difference is because the difference between them, it's that, as I said before, the Windows Store, it is removed from the Windows 10 LTSC, okay, and the Cortana is removed, and the Microsoft Edge is removed. So all of this make it more secure for using it in a production environment. So here we will begin installation of the Windows 10 LTSC 2019 operating system. Okay, next, install, and we will have the hard disk of this virtual machine partitioned to two partitions. One will be 100 gigabyte and the other will be the remaining, which is 100 gigabyte also. So we have two partitions, every one of them is 100 gigabyte. Okay, and one of them we will install on it the operating system, which is the C partition, and the D partition will contain the user's data. So we will accept the license agreement. Next, and then custom installation, and then we partition this unallocated space. The first partition will be 100 gigabyte. Okay, and then we will have the remaining of the 200 gigabyte, which is 102 gigabyte, as the second partition, and we will format the third partition as NTFS. This will be the D partition, and then we will install the operating system of partition 2, which is the C partition. So now I have just paused the video until the installation is finished. Now we can restart. So to make this workstation join the domain, this workstation should take an IP address from the DHCP. So to do this, we need to take the MAC address of the network card of this virtual machine and put it in the allow filter in the DHCP options. So the DHCP can give this workstation an IP address and give it the DNS IP address and the WINS IP address and the domain controller IP address. Here we will configure the region, which is the United States. We will make it very simple. We will just install, or we will leave everything for the default, and there our login script will configure the rest. After joining this workstation to the domain, it will install the keyboard layouts, it will change the region or the time region, and then we will skip adding the keyboard layout, and then add the part of the network configuration for this workstation. It will not take an IP address because we didn't allow the DHCP to give this workstation an IP address yet. We will allow it or we allow the DHCP to give this workstation IP address by putting the MAC address of this network card of this workstation in the allow filter in the DHCP options. Okay, we will see that in a moment, so don't be in a hurry. We will see that. So now we will pause the video. So now here it didn't get any IP address, so it's unidentified network, so skip for now. Sorry, it's a little bit hanging because I have only 8 GB of RAM, and I have 2 virtual machines up and running taking about 4 GB of RAM. So I have left 4, and I have my host which is taking also a considerable amount of RAM, so I am having a little bit of some performance issues. Okay, anyway, so now we will begin. He will ask you to create a username and a password on this workstation. So this username and password would be the second local administrator on the machine. You need to give it a good username. Don't give it administrator or admin. As I said before, this is not best practice. Okay, and then we will name it and give it a password, and then later through our default domain group policy, the first local administrator, which is called administrator, will be renamed and disabled, okay, as due to the best practice of Microsoft. It is recommended to close the first local administrator or on every workstation. Now it's asking me for secret questions. If I forget my password, he will ask me these secret questions and give me the password. So I'm just pause the video and answer the questions, and then what you will do here, we need to close all of the online services because you are in a production environment, so you don't need your location to be published, your diagnostic data, your advertising ID. All of this is best practice to close them because they are all online services, or this is are services related to the internet which publish your some of your workstation IDs, so it's not best practice to leave them opened. Anyway, so here what I'll do, I'm just opening the command prompt and just type a command to show you all that I didn't get an IP address. Still, here we can see that this is called a PIPA or auto configuration IP. This is given to the machine if there is no IP or there is no DHCP server there, or you didn't put a static IP address to this workstation. So now I'm just making this command to get the MAC address of the network card of this virtual machine, and then I need to go to the DHCP configuration, okay, or the DHCP server, and add this MAC address so I can allow this workstation to get an IP address. Okay, so here just I need to pause it a little bit, but just wait for a moment. We need to go there. So here what we will do, just a moment, just a moment. Just a moment here. Just a moment. So let's continue, guys. Here I will change the name of this workstation. Okay. So here I got or open this workstation. Okay, and then we will get to the properties. Properties, and then we change the name of this virtual machine, okay, to name it as HDSSD MCS01, and then try to join into the domain, but we will not join into the domain. Change setting, and then we will change the computer name. Okay, so we will name it this name. We put it on the clipboard, so this is the name of the workstation, and it will not be able to take an IP address unless we allow it through the DHCP. So restart later. We need to add the MAC address, so I need to get the MAC address and put it in the configuration of the DHCP. So here is the MAC address. I will copy it, and then we need to go to the configuration of the DHCP. We will do it in a moment. Here we'll restart, and then we will go to the DHCP configuration. Here you go, and then we will open the custom console. I think we can pause it real quickly, just a moment. So here, this is the DHCP, and then we need to add a new entry in the allow filters. Here we will add the MAC address of the virtual machine, and then we will add in the description section the name of the virtual machine. So I need to get it pause it real quickly because I just need to pause, because here you go, just a moment. So here what we are doing here, we will add the MAC address, and then we will add the name of the virtual machine, and then add, and then close, and then we need to restart the machine, okay, and then we will try to join into the domain. So we add in the allow filter. Here we will just release the IP address, okay, and then we'll tell him renew, so we can see if it will take an IP address from our DHCP. So here we can see that you have successfully done this, and it's already see our domain is ENCOMMF.LOCAL, yes, and then we got an IP address of 10.0.1.50. This is in our range, and then we need to join this workstation to the domain and see the different group policies that is applied to this workstation, and the login script, we will see it also applied to this workstation. So we have allowed this workstation to take an IP address from our DHCP by allowing its network card MAC address to take an IP address from the domain, from the DHCP, sorry. Here we will change the setting, and then we will tell him change, and then we will join the domain, and we will use my domain admin account to join this workstation to the domain ENCOMMF.LOCAL, ENCOMMF.LOCAL. Then okay, I will use my domain admin account. Okay, this is the domain and my domain admin and my password. And we need the last step. After joining this workstation to the domain, we need to make sure that this Hyper-V virtual machine, its MAC address, it's a static MAC address, not a dynamic MAC address. What we mean by that? The Hyper-V setting, when you create a virtual machine in the Hyper-V environment, it has an option to change the MAC address of the network card of this virtual machine every time you shut down and open this virtual machine. So we don't need this, because we need the DHCP to give this workstation an IP address according to its MAC address. So if the MAC address is changed every now and then, the DHCP will block this virtual machine to take an IP address. So we will make the MAC address of this virtual machine to be a static MAC address, not a dynamic MAC address. We will see how this is done from the Hyper-V virtual machine setting. Now we can see that the workstation has already joined the domain, and we have seen the welcome message of our ENCOMMF.LOCAL domain, and then I have used my domain admin account to log in on this workstation that had joined the domain. You will see the login script, how it is applied. We will see different group policies. We will see the login script that will add the Arabic and English keyboards, and then it will hide the Cortana, and then it will make the time zone to be the time zone of Egypt or Cairo. All of this will done using the login script. So here it is the beginning of the installation of or the beginning of the working of the of the login script. It's initializing or implementing the registry keys, and we can see here that this PC icon appears on the desktop, and this PC text is changed to reflect the computer name. Okay, this is all done by the login script, but we need to make another restart because still not all of the login script is applied in full. So another restart will make sure that the login script is applied for the second time, and all of the missing registry keys that was not applied in the first login will be applied in the second login. This is only appears in the virtual environment. In a real environment this will not happen. So anyway, now we can see that this is the welcome message of our domain, and then OK, and then KRAO. So later in our video we will use this workstation which is joining the ENCOMMF.LOCAL domain. We will use it to migrate it from ENCOMMF.LOCAL domain to ENCOMMF2.LOCAL domain, and will migrate the user profiles or the Windows user profiles also from ENCOMMF.LOCAL domain to ENCOMMF2.LOCAL domain. So this is a very critical step, and you can see also that when this workstation had joined the domain, we can see that a certain background is applied, which we have already configured in the default domain policy, and a certain screensaver is applied, and a certain lock screen is applied. All of this are done by the default domain policy, and we have discussed before how this can be done. So after creating this virtual machine and joining it to the domain and see the different group policies applied and the login script, we will create another virtual machine, and this virtual machine will be a new domain controller in a new domain in a new forest. Okay, so this will be ENCOMMF2.LOCAL. This will be our new domain that we will migrate users from users or Active Directory objects from ENCOMMF.LOCAL domain from this domain to the new domain, which is MF2.LOCAL domain. So we will have a new virtual machine. This new virtual machine will be a new forest, or it will be we'll install Active Directory on it, and then we'll promote this server to be a domain controller, and this domain controller will be a new forest, will be a domain controller in a new forest in a new domain, which which will be ENCOMMF2.LOCAL. So now we can see that the keyboard and English and Arabic keyboard layout, it is added. I am just here adjusting the display resolution for this virtual machine. I think we can get a little bit faster here, just a moment. So here we'll just adjust the resolution of the virtual machine. Make it 1366 by 768 pixel, okay, because this is the resolution of my laptop screen. and then we'll keep the changes. And now as you can see, the English and Arabic keyboard layout is installed, and the department shares appeared as network mapped drives, and the user home directory folder also appeared, and the quota is applied to the 3 network map drives. Okay, the department shares it's 10 gigabyte, and the user home directory it's 2 gigabyte. We can see here the Arabic and English keyboard layout, and the time zone, or the time zone of this machine, it is Cairo time zone. So now this is the last step that is considered, or the last time that we will work with the ENCOMMF.LOCAL domain. We will now create a new virtual machine, okay, and make it a new domain controller in a new forest in a new domain. Here first we need to make the network card MAC address of this workstation to be static. So we will go to the setting of this virtual machine, okay, and make the network card MAC address to be a static, not dynamic, because dynamic it will change the network card MAC address every time you switch off and switch on the virtual machine, and we don't need this because the DHCP will give IP address to this virtual machine with a certain MAC address. So if this MAC address is changed, the DHCP will not know if this workstation is allowed to take an IP address or not. So now we will make it the MAC address to be a static MAC address, not a dynamic, and then apply and OK. So this is the last step, and we need to consider this when we create any virtual machine to be a workstation that will join the domain, especially if you are using the DHCP allow and deny filter options. Okay, you don't need to do this if you are not enabling the allow and deny filter, and this is also a best practice. You need to allow the deny and allow filters. This is a best practice also for Microsoft. So now we have finished our workstation. We need now to go to the second video that we will use to now we will create a new virtual machine. So we have our 2 virtual machines in our ENCOMMF.LOCAL domain. Now we'll create a third virtual machine, and you need to take care here that this new virtual machine will be our new domain, okay, or our new domain controller in our new domain. You need to make sure that the name of this new domain controller in a new domain will be different than the domain controller name in our old domain. So you can't name both the same, okay. So you can't, for example, name the domain controller in ENCOMMF.LOCAL domain to be HDSS. So let's continue, guys. Here we need to make sure that the new domain controller in our new domain, its name, or the domain controller virtual machine name, or the domain controller server name should be different than the old domain controller in our old domain. For example, here this server is HDSSD when OS S01. This is our domain controller server name in our domain ENCOMMF.LOCAL. So we can't name our new domain controller with the same name, for example, in our new domain, which is ENCOMMF version 2.LOCAL. This will make problems when we try to migrate from the old domain to the new domain. We will see that. I will leave it as it is, so I can show you all the problems that will arise from naming these 2 domain controllers in different domains with the same name. I will show you all this problem. Okay, I have named it in the virtual machine with a different name, but when we go in installing the Windows Server operating system, I will name it exactly as the old domain controller. So here we give it 2 GB of RAM, and we will put it on the DC internal switch, which is the Hyper-V internal switch in our lab, and then we will make this new domain controller with 200 GB of hard disk. Next, and then finish. Then we need to go to the setting and enable in the integration services. First of all, we need to add 2 network adapter cards, or we will add another network adapter card and put it on the same Hyper-V internal switch. So we will have 2 network cards on for this virtual machine. And why we do this? To make network teaming. We have done this before, to make network teaming for these 2 cards. And then we have checked the guest services in the integration services, so we have good communication between the host and the guest. And then we will insert the Windows Server 2019 iOS or ISO image. This ISO image contains the Windows Server Data Center 2019 operating system. Now we will start it and begin the installation. We will have 2 partitions for this new domain controller, C and D. Everyone will be 100 gigabytes, and we have 2 network cards. We will make network teaming between them through the Windows Server Data Center 2019 operating system. We have done this before with the old domain controller. I think we can pass it real quickly, just a moment. So here we will choose the Windows Server 2019 data center, and then we'll accept the license agreement. Next, then we'll have the custom installation, and then we'll have this unallocated space to be partitioned to 2 partitions, C and D. Every partition will be 100 gigabytes. So we will apply. Okay, and then the other one we will make a new partition, and will be the D partition, and we will format it as NTFS so we can access it. And then we will choose the second partition to have the Windows operating system installed on it, and then we will pause the video until the installation is finished. We will repeat the same process that we have done in the old domain controller. The exact steps will be done with the new domain controller. Okay, so we will have our local administrator account. We should give it a password. We will skip the product key, and then we will give the local administrator password, or we give the local administrator user password. And remember, we need to rename it and disable it after that. This will be done using the default domain policy that we will export from the old domain. I will show you all this step, but just make sure. Here is the administrator. We will give it a password. Okay, and then next, and then after that we need to change the name of this server to reflect our new domain controller name. So this machine will have, or this domain controller server will have a name. This name should be different than the name of the old domain controller in the old domain, but I have made a mistake and named both the old domain controller and the new domain controller with the same name. So this will do a lot of problems. I will show you all in the upcoming videos how this will make a problem in the migration from the old domain to the new domain. We will see that. So I think I can pass it real quickly for you guys here. So here we are logged in. Okay, and then here we will just do our regular steps. We have changed the resolution of the virtual machine to have the screen wider, and then we'll have the desktop icons on our server. So you need the different icons to appear on the desktop. Okay, this we have done this before, and then we need to right click on properties and change the name of this server to reflect our new domain controller server name, and this should be different than the old domain controller name. So we'll go to the change setting and change the name of this server. As I said before, you need to make sure, okay, so here this is my mistake, that I have named the old domain controller exactly, or so I have named the new domain controller in the new domain exactly as the name of the old domain controller in the old domain. So this will make huge problems when migrating. So here we have changed the name. We need after that to make the network teaming between the two network cards and give this virtual machine or this server that will be a domain controller an IP address after the merging of the two network cards. So we go to the local server, and then we need to enable, as you all remember, you need to enable the remote desktop option, so we can be able to access this server from outside, and allow the remote connections, and allow connections to only be from authenticated or network authenticated users. And then we will make network teaming or NIC teaming or network card teaming. We will merge, or we will combine these two network cards to be as one. We have done this before with the old domain controller, so we can revise it. We are doing the same steps. Here the network team, then we name this two network cards teaming the team name, and then after teaming them we need to put a static IP address to this server. Okay, so here the network teaming, it is in process. It will give you failed messages in the beginning, but after that you can see that it will be changed to green and it will be active for both. So here we can see faulted connection pending and one is active. Both will be active in a couple of seconds. So I think we can pause it also a little bit. Here I am just making small so here the teaming has done. Just a moment. So here the teaming is done. So now we can go and give this server a static IP address. So we'll go to the control panel and then small icons, and then the network and sharing center, and then to the network card teamed connection, and then go to the TCP IP protocol, okay, and properties, and then we will use an IP address. It will be 10.0.1.22, I think 10.0.1.21. okay, this is the static IP address of this server, 255.255.255, and then okay. And then we need to install the Active Directory domain services on this server, and after that we will promote this server to be a domain controller in a new forest in a new domain. So he will be the first domain controller in a new forest in a new domain, which is ENCOMMF2.LOCAL domain. So this will be our new domain that will migrate all of the Active Directory objects from the old domain to this new domain. So here we will go, and this is the administrator account. We will go and install the Active Directory domain services. Then we will just pause it for a moment, and then we will go and to the local server to make sure that all of the settings are applied. So here is the name. Take care that it is the same name as the old domain controller, so this will make problems. And you can see that the NC or the network teaming is done and the IP address is set, and the remote desktop option is enabled. I think we can get a little bit bypass this. So here everything is set, the IP address, the options are enabled, the name is set, it is wrong, take care. And then we'll need to go and add the Active Directory domain services. We go to the dashboard and add manage and add roles and features. Okay, next. First we need to disable this server manager to start automatically at login, because it takes from the RAM, and then we add roles and features, and next. Then we add the Active Directory domain services, add features, next, and then we'll install this Active Directory domain services. Then we will pause the video for a moment until the installation of the Active Directory domain services is done. And then this is our old domain controller in our old domain. Okay, think here what I am doing I don't remember, but let me have a look. So here what I will do, here I am taking all of the scripts that I have. Sorry, I am here. What I am doing here what we will do, just a moment, just to take care. Here we will export what I am doing. Here I am exporting what I am doing now. I am making a folder, and in this folder I will export all of the group policies from the ENCOMMF.LOCAL domain. I will export all of the group policies in the ENCOMMF.LOCAL domain, and then we'll import them in the new ENCOMM version 2.LOCAL domain. So we will make a folder, okay, and we will name it, okay, Tron Legacy group policies. So we will back up, or we will export all of our ENCOMMF.LOCAL group policies and take them and import them in the new domain, which will be ENCOMMF version 2.LOCAL domain. We will see that in a moment. So this is the first step of the migration. It will not be done using the Active Directory migration tool. This is done through using the following steps. So we will go, this is how you can export group policies from one domain to another. So we will go and go to the group policy objects, and then right click, and then tell him to back up this group policy, okay, and we will tell him where to back it up. Okay, it will be backed up in the folder that you have created from a couple of seconds. Okay, so this is the way you can export and import group policies from one domain to a differently new domain. Okay, and here you can give a description to this group policy. We will give description to reflect the name of the group policy. So here we will give a description of advanced users group policy. This is the group policy name, so the description will be the group policy name, and then back up, and we repeat the same process, okay, for the remaining group policies. Okay, so we can export all of the group policies that we need. Okay, it is a best practice to take cautious when you are exporting these two group policies and importing them in another domain, because I prefer this two group policies not to be imported directly from one domain to another. You need to take care and do the setting of these two group policies manually. Please, we need to get a little bit further again. Here, these two group policies, you need to take a deep care when you are exporting them, okay, and importing them. I prefer these two group policies not to be imported in any new domain. You need to export only the setting of these two and see it one by one and make them manually in the new domain, okay, because there is differences. You can't import and export them directly because this will make problems. You need only to take the setting of these two, read them carefully, and open the new group policies in the new domain for these two with the same name, and configure them one by one, okay. So you can import all of the other group policies except of these two. I prefer these two not to be exported and imported automatically. You need to configure them manually and take deep care for the configuration of both of these two, because they differ from one domain to another, okay. So you cannot import them easily. All of the others can be imported easily and will not make any problems, and if there is any differences, it can be changed and will not do any harm. But these two are very important, so you cannot import and export automatically. You need to know the setting of these both two, know them manually, or have a report with them, and then you go to the new domain and see the new group policies in this domain and configure them one by one, okay. So this is a note to be taken. So here we are now installing the Active Directory domain services. So now it's still installing the Active Directory domain services and it's still now back up or exporting the group policy. So this is our first step in our preparation of the migration process. So now we have exported our first group policy. Then we will export the second group policy. Right click think it's a little bit okay. Right click and then back up, and then we put the description, the name of the group policy. As we can see, we will back up or export the group policies, and then we will save reports for every group policy. These reports will contain the configuration of each group policy. So we'll have a report with every group policy and what is the configuration of this group policy, and we will export the group policy as an item or as a file in this, or what we are doing, we are exporting the group policy as a file, and we are getting a report with the different setting of this group policy also. I will show you all this step, but now we are exporting the second group policy, and then we will back up or export the third group policy. Okay, and then we will create reports, or we will get reports for every group policy. Every report contains the setting for this group policy. Okay, so you can read them. So if you need to read them only, this can be done through something called save report for every group policy, or if you need to import them directly without reading the configuration, this can also be done. So now this is the third group policy to be exported, and then we will export the default domain policy, and we need to take deep care for these two, default domain policy and the default domain controllers policy. As for the default domain control policies, we didn't do any configuration to this group policy, so we will not export it or back it up or get it out. Okay, so this is, we are exporting the default domain policy. So now we are still installing the Active Directory domain services. So now it's giving us some warnings, okay, because said before, some items when exported from one domain to another, it will make some problems, so you need to take deep care with the default domain policy when exporting and importing them. And this is the default users group policy. So this is the fifth, or we have 7 group policies. We are exporting them all or back them up. Okay, so the first step in our migration process is to back up or export the group policies from the old domain, so later we can import it in our new domain. Okay, so this is one step of the migration. This is not done using the Active Directory migration tool. Okay, and I'll show you all how we can manage these group policies and change them according to our new domain setting. Okay, but just keep with me, we will do this step by step. Okay, back up. Okay, and then back up. So now we have exported or back up the 7 group policies. We need to get a report with the setting of each group policy saved also, so we can read the setting. Okay, so we can read the setting. If you don't need to import them directly, or for example if you need to revise what is the setting of these group policies before importing them to your new domain, this can be done. This can be done by right click every group policy and tell him to save report. He will get you a report, okay, with every group policy setting. This report will be saved as an HTML file. Okay, so we will save this group policy setting for every group policy in a report. This report is an HTML report. Okay, so wait for a moment. Here we have installed the Active Directory domain service. We will promote this server to be a domain controller, and then we will make a new forest. Okay, this will be our new domain in our this is new domain controller, our new domain in our new forest. Okay, so just wait for a moment. I think we can pause it also here. So here he is telling us to save the group policy report. Okay, advanced users group policy. You right click and save report for every group policy. Every report will contain the setting for every group policy, so here we are saving it. Okay, so this is the second group policy report, and we will do this one by one. So in the migration you need to be very careful. You need to make documentation of the old domain very carefully. Document the group policies, document the department shares, document the users, document the groups. We will see how this will done. We will document everything and we will support everything. Okay, so just wait for a moment. Okay, and classic shell, this is the third group policy. So you can see that all of the 7 group policies are exported this is our all, and this is are the reports for every group policy and what does it contain. Okay, so let's go here. And the default domain policy, save report. I think it's a little bit, as I said before, I have some performance issues. So here again, so let's go again. So here now we will have our new forest. This is our new domain controller. Here our new domain will be ENCOMMFv2.LOCAL. This is our new domain, and this will be our new domain controller in our new domain. Okay, next. And then we will repeat the same process what we have done with the old domain controller. We will set the Active Directory restore mode password, and we will make it a domain or make it a DNS server and a global catalog. And the forest functional level and domain functional level, it will be Windows Server 2016. I've discussed this all in the Mass Effect lab and the DC Comics lab and the Marvel and DC United lab in details. Okay, and this is the NetBIOS name for the domain. Anyway, so here we are still exporting or saving reports of the different group policies setting. Okay, just a moment guys. So let's continue guys. Here we will still exporting the reports for every group policy. We have 2 group policies left. So here I think we can pause this real quickly because it is not. Here we do exported the mapping policy, and then we have the last report for the last group policy. I think also this can be passed also, just a moment. Okay, sorry for the delaying or for the slowness of this lab, because I said before I have a limited hardware. So here we will save the group policy. Okay, and then here we return back to the new domain controller. We are promoting this server to be a domain controller in our new domain, in our new forest, which is ENCOMMFv2.LOCAL. So I think we can pause also this real quickly. Okay, so we tell him to install or promote. We have discussed the different options for this Active Directory or this promoting of the server to be a domain controller. We discussed it in details in all of the labs we have done before. So now I think now we can pass this for the exporting of the, I don't need to do this anyway, so we can pass it real quickly. Just a moment. No guys, sorry, here I will go again. Here what we will do, we will open a PowerShell, okay, and then we will export the second step in our process. Here we will export the DHCP configuration of our old domain controller. So here we will, what we will do, we will make a new folder, and here we will export the DHCP configuration, okay, of our old domain controller, of our old domain, and then we will import it in our new domain. We will have a new DHCP in our new domain, and we will import the old DHCP configuration from the old domain to the, or from the old DHCP server to the new DHCP server. So here now what we will do, we will export the DHCP setting of our old DHCP server in our old domain. Okay, so now what we will do, we will have a command that we will do. We'll tell him export DHCP. So we have a DHCP in our ENCOMMF.LOCAL domain, so we'll export this DHCP configuration, and then we will import it in our after of course making a new DHCP server in our new domain, which is ENCOMMF2.LOCAL, and export and import the old DHCP configuration to this new DHCP. So now we are exporting DHCP server, and the computer name, we will type the full name of the DHCP server, which is hdsswinoss01.encommf.local. This is the full domain name of our DHCP server, okay, which is in the same time it is a domain controller, it is a DNS server, and the WINS server. Okay, so we'll export the DHCP configuration, and then we will import it back in our new domain. Okay, so this is the second step in the migration. The first step is to prepare to export the group policies from the old domain, and the second step is to export the DHCP configuration. So these two steps are done not through the Active Directory migration tool, and these are important steps to be done to migrate the DHCP and to migrate the group policies from one domain to another. And we will export this file. It will be exported an XML file. Okay, so we'll export it. So we need to open the PowerShell and run it as administrator, and then through the PowerShell we will export the DHCP configuration from our DHCP server in our old domain, which is ENCOMMF.LOCAL domain, and then we will import it to a new DHCP that we will create in our new domain, okay, which is ENCOMMF2.LOCAL. Okay, so here let's just pass it real quickly. So here we will copy the folder. Okay, we need to tell him to put the configuration or export the configuration to this location. Okay, so the command, it will export the DHCP configuration for this server, or for DHCP server with this name, to this folder. Okay, okay, so we will put it or slash, and then we will make the configuration, or it's an XML file, so DHCP export.xml. so this is the file. So this is the command for exporting the DHCP. This is the name of the DHCP server, and this is the exported configuration file. It's DHCP export.xml. Okay, so we have two important steps before migrating our Active Directory: exporting the DHCP configuration, exporting the group policies, so it can be later imported to our new domain. So I think we can just pass it real quickly here. So now if we go to the location, we can see that a file, it is there already. Okay, I think this is not needed anyway. I can just pass it real quickly for you here. Again, here you can see this is the file, it is exported already. We can pass the remaining because it's not important anyway. So also this is also exported, we don't need this. All of this is not needed. Okay, we'll export it anyway. So with this our video are completed. We have installed our we have created our new domain and our new domain controller, our new domain, and we have exported the DHCP and we exported the group policies. The upcoming video will begin using the Active Directory migration tool. Hope this video is informative for you all, and would like to thank you all for viewing. Thank you so much.